that, getting hit multiple times. Coming out of that bike section, more drivers coming to blows. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula V Weekend Warriors. This is round number 3 of this season, coming to you today from the Sachsenring. My name is Ron Maunz, and alongside me, working the comms and the cams, is Joshua Wilkie. Well, Josh, this is far from the first time that we've been here at this rather quirky German racetrack, but it is still rather new on the iRacing platform. So despite the fact these drivers do have some experience racing around here, it still feels like we venture off into the unknown every single time we pop up here.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good way to put it, Ron, and thank you for bringing me in there. I was just thinking about that kind of on the run up here as well, that I don't have a great memory of this place, to be totally honest. I kind of remember a feeling of how this place was. It's flowy, it's got a little bit of undulation, but as far as the actual technical bits of the track, I just can't remember it, and I'm sure that's because we just haven't been here too many times. I think I've only actually raced here once myself. This will be, I believe, the 3rd time we've been here for the Formula V's, at least the 2nd time. And I would imagine they're kind of going through the same thing here. You're going to have to go out and you have some memories of some of the corners, and once you get out there, you're going to remember some stuff for sure. But this is going to be a bit of a discovery again for the drivers as well, just learning the track.
Yeah, it is a bit of a rediscovery. Every single time we come here, these racers get more and more acclimatized to this track every single time we show up here, and has been a part of the past 3 now Formula V Weekend Warriors schedules. And speaking of the schedule, we've got a darn good schedule to look forward to here this season. Of course, we've already had the races at Phillip Island and Sebring, but you look ahead, the Sachsenring, of course, here today. Lime Rock next time out. That is going to be a truly insane race, as it usually is there. But then you look at the likes of Oschersleben returning to Germany, going to France in the form of Magny-Cours, Summit Point, and VIR for 2 classic American road courses. Lebanon returning to France, Alton Park coming to the UK, Okayama for the second to last round of this season, and then Brands Hatch for the season finale. A lot of stuff to look forward to here in season 4 of 2025 for the Formula V Weekend Warriors. And of course, you'll be able to catch all of the action live here all season long on Slow Motion Broadcasting. But right now, we've got ourselves a qualifying session to talk about. Lap times already getting set on the board. We'll run through it right now and let you know that this man, Felix Moes, is your top qualifier presently, a 1-minute 40.029 as he heads his way off through the tight twisties. We'll also let you know about the sponsor of today's broadcast, Russ Telker. Thank you, Russ. And this track is actually a bit of a happy hunting ground for him. I think last season was able to capture one of 2 Spec 2 wins for him in season 3, and ended up on the overall podium as well, and looking to keep that same form rolling as he's currently qualified P2 overall.
Yeah, I believe you're right there. You had a pretty darn good finish here. You know, this is a place, again, maybe because we do come here so little, or we haven't been here very often, and it's kind of a new track, that it does sort of promote maybe a new winner, or somebody maybe who doesn't usually win, as we see Felix Moes here going through one of the more difficult sections. I remember trying to learn this part when I was driving. I believe it was an FF, and it's a bit of a counterintuitive section here, at least in the FF it was. You know, you're not really hitting the apexes where you think you should, and then this big downhill run here where we're definitely going to have a few pass attempts, and we're going to see some 2-3 wide things through here. I think not a fast place to go too wide through, but I'm sure we'll see it. And then another pretty good passing opportunity here up into one of the more important corners to make sure that you get on the power just right to get this big drag down the front straight. Curbs around here too are a bit of a deal. They are big. They're the big 3D curbs. They can upset the car a little bit, so it's another thing to think about here as well. But yeah, I think we're going to have a pretty interesting one. Lots of drafting, lots of flowing corners. Yeah, it's going to be a thinking track, I think, today.
Yeah, this is going to be a thinking man's race, or thinking woman's race in the case of Michelle Lynn, slotted in P10. Can't forget about the females, and you won't be able to forget about them here on SMB, as coming up in nearly a week's time, we've got the opening round of the Liberty Bell Championship. We'll let you know about that in the weeks and broadcasts that lie ahead between now and the season opening race with that MX5 series on October the 12th here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. A lot of great stuff to look forward to, and a lot of great stuff to look forward to here today as we ride on board with Guido Marzuki, our colleague here at SMB, heading his way off through the back end of the circuit. This track really feels like the tale of two halves. You've got the opening section of racetrack where the first 6 corners are all back to back to back to back to back to back to back. It is so tough heading off through the opening part of this lap, but then as you head your way out of 6, head your way off into the middle sector, and even down to the final sector for that matter, even though you have some slow turns, especially in the form of this turn number 13, it's very quick on the back end of the circuit, which can make setups a little bit tricky. Here in these Formula Vs, don't have to worry about too much when it comes to the setup. These aren't the most sophisticated race cars in the world, but a setup can make a huge difference, and when you've got a track that is so topsy-turvy when it comes to one part being completely different than the other, can be a little bit hard to try and nail that down.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. It is. It's really twisty here in this first spot, and it kind of really asks a lot less or different things it's going to ask of the car in the second or the latter half of the lap for sure, where it's a lot more wide open and so on. Not really sure how much that matters. I'm not a big V setup guy. Don't think these things are really hard to set up, but it is going to be a difference between a car that wants to turn in and wants to, rotate really well, and then another one that maybe is faster in a straight line, and maybe some medium speed corners there, and this track definitely throws all of that at you for sure. And if not the car, then definitely your mind as well, just being able to kind of open those things up. We see him going through this kind of flat out section through here, really fun section actually to get it right, and then you got to clip this curb as much as possible, that 3D curb there, and then another big curb clip here, nice and wide. And then this section always just felt a little bit strange to me. I wasn't sure where to go at first, but really it's just kind of flat out. I wouldn't really say that it's almost like a big straightaway, this last part here, even though it's got some twists in it. So we're going to definitely see some 3 and 4 wide stuff through this section, I think, here. But that's a great point you bring there, Ron. It is almost feel like 2 different tracks here from beginning to end.
Yeah, but that's part of the reason why we love the Sachsenring, as we've talked about extensively thus far in this show. One of the newer tracks added onto the iRacing platform, but it has proved itself to be a bit of a fan favorite, with many racers absolutely adoring running around here, as Guido just jumped up to the pole at a 139.944. Well done, Guido, the driver of the number 19 car, jumping in front of your reigning champion, Felix Samoas. Just to touch on the other classes here real quick, though, Jim Brewster, your top qualifier in Masters, slotted in 4th with Russ Telker, your top qualifier in the Spec 2 category. But look at Guido putting in a very good performance, representing SMB strong. Hey, he made his commentary debut last week for the FFs running at Sebring, and here at the Sachsenring looks to try and score his first overall win. He won in Spec 1 a couple of seasons ago. It's nearly a year ago that he got the job done. I believe that was at Thruxton that he ended up winning in Spec 1, but that wasn't actually an overall win, as it was Spec 2 driver at the time, Ethan Orr, winning that race overall. But Guido looking to put in a good performance here today. Less than 5 minutes left to go here in this qualifying session. Pretty much everybody's qualifying laps have already been erased, but Marzuki jumped up to the pole there, and not by a big margin, mind you, but that is still the pole position regardless.
Yeah, it's a great lap out of Guido there for sure. It was a pretty clean looking lap while we were on board with him for sure. He's hitting those apexes just right. It did look pretty quick for sure. But yeah, that one definitely put him on the top. Not by a whole bunch there at all. It's a few tenths or a few thousandths of a second. So pretty close up at the front here. Then Parvinder Ladar just a little bit behind that. Jim Brewster, first Masters driver, in 4th place overall here for the race so far, as we got about 4 minutes left in qualifying here. So there's enough time to maybe pop one more in, but I have a feeling that top's not going to change too much as it is right now. Maybe a little bit less of a mix of drivers today, but we do have a couple Masters drivers kind of mixing things up between with Nate Colasio in the middle there of Kurt Nunez and Jim Brewster, as we're watching here. Alan DeGassis trying to come to terms with this. 8th place, see if he can't get a bit of a better lap in around the Sachsenring here. Not an easy track, really. I'm trying to remember the parts that I had trouble with around here, and if I can remember correctly, it was kind of that last corner. The last corner is a little bit difficult. You're always trying to kind of speed into it. It's got a little bit of a rise in the road there, so you can actually throw the car into it a little bit, which just sort of begs you to go harder and harder into it until you go a little bit too wide and find those 3D curbs on exit, and they definitely do slow you down a little bit. We see him kind of getting a little bit of slip angle into that corner there. Nice looking paint job on Alan's car today as well.
Yeah, very nice looking race car, and running a very nice lap at the current moment. We'll see. Actually, no, he comes down pit lane, so it was not a very nice lap, as it turns out, from Alan DeGassis. But with 3 minutes left to go here in this qualifying session, it's already been a good season up to this point. Already 2 races in our rearview mirror, and I think as we have a bit of a lull in the action, so to speak, with everybody having their qualifying sessions already in their rearview mirrors, may be able to take a look at the championship point standings as we head off into this 3rd round of the championship. It's not a lot of races, only a 6th of the season, but hey, it's a 6th of the season. We've already gone through a heck of a lot of racing, so it feels kind of goofy to take a look at the championship point standings, but I think we've already had some trends pop up, so to speak. So we'll start off with Spec 1, where Felix Samoas leads in a very tight battle with himself, Josh Justice, and Stefan Heemskirk, who we were keeping eyes on a few moments ago, slotted in 3rd. Parvin Ladar making a Spec 1 debut. Your reigning champion, the Spec 2 class, is in 4th. Guido Marzuki in 5th. Tortello, your multi-time past champion here in the Formula V Weekend Warriors, is slotted in P6. Chris Montgomery in 7th. Nate Colasio in 8th. Michelle Lynn and Justin Huffman round out your top 10. We'll take a look now at the Spec 2 category, where things have once again been rather topsy-turvy in that class, and we have got a 1-2 of drivers who are not here. Dan Szynski in the YouTube chat watching this show right after his brother Brian was out there on the racetrack for the SCCA National Championship runoffs up there in Road America, was able to tune into that a little bit earlier on today. Unfortunate for Brian, a last moment spin hang down to Canna Corner right at the end took him out of a potential spot to pick up the Szynski Cup with the highest finishing position for a Szynski ever in the runoffs. Was oh so close, but still nice to see SMB represented strong out there. here. Jason Grider, Stefan Westcott, and Brian Hoover round out a very competitive field in the Spec 2 category, including Ken Hadu, who won in debut last time out at Sebring in class. We'll take a look now at the Masters category, where things looking a little bit more solid here. Andrew Love, your past winner, overall race winner last season at Phillip Island. He was in Spec 2 then. He's now in Masters and holds on to 151 points. He's currently 31 above Kurt Nunez, slot in P2, Wayne Buttermore in third, Jim Brewster in fourth, Antonio Reese, Alan DeGassis, Stevie Ray, Nick Tullo, and Jurg Mani round out your drivers currently classified in the Masters category here in the Formula V Weekend Warriors. Still very early doors in this championship, but already seeing some familiar faces bring their way up to the front.
Yeah, absolutely. It always seems to be those familiar faces up at the front. We are definitely finding a little more pace throughout the field, though. I have noticed some people kind of moving around and finding some different places and in certain races and so on, and I would expect this one's going to be the same here, a little bit different like we were saying on the run-up. Maybe not quite so much track knowledge around here. We've only been a couple times, so sometimes that can rear its head. You can get somebody who just put a few extra laps in and they get a win out of it, or they move up in the field a little bit more than they usually would. But it looks like we are about to grid up here. We should be able to grab a grid here for us and get her started, Ron.
Yeah, break out that CAD WD-40, get the graphics loaded up here, and let you know what the starting grid's going to look like. It's going to be Guido Marzuki, our SMB colleague, starting this race from the pole position. Felix Samoa is set to join him on the front row. Parvin Ladar in the number 3 car will start this race in P3. Jim Brewster, after a win last time out in the Masters category at Sebring, looks to carry the momentum on as your reigning Masters champion. He will be starting this race in 4th. Nate Coliseo will be in P5. Alongside him will be Kurt Nunez on your 3rd row. Russ Telker going to be your top qualifier in the Spec 2 category. Already 2 different winners in the Spec 2 class, 2 different winners in all of our classes here in the Formula V's. Telker got to look to try and keep that streak going as he starts in 7th, alongside Stefan Heemskerk, the Dutch driver, in P8. Alan DeGassis will start this race in 9th, with Michelle Lynn riding at your top 10.
Yeah, and then in 11th place we have Ken Hado, and in 12th we have Joshua Justice, as we're just getting gridded here for the formation lap. In 13th place we have Nick Tullo. In 14th we have Brett Thompson. 15th Stephen Westcott. Excuse me. In 16th we have Wayne Buttermore. In 17th David McLean. In 18th Joshua Spears, I believe, is a new driver with us today. I don't think I've seen Joshua Spears before in our lineup here, and I believe that is the last driver in our lineup today.
Yeah, so those are your starters here today. 18 strong here at the Sachsenring. This track with 13 turns is it's an oddball, as I said, right towards the top end of the show. There's really nothing like this track, both on iRacing and in real life. That long corner, the carousel, as we like to call it, off through turn number 3, is another thing that adds into the peculiarness of this racetrack. To invoke a little French there, my tongue got wrapped around my teeth about 16 times as I peculiarity. I'm from Philadelphia. English is not my first language. Sarcasm is actually cursing if I can't say that on the air. But we've got ourselves the normal Formula V race on a very abnormal track.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. This is going to be a bit of a different one, and it is a different layout, like we're mentioning there. This is very different than basically every track out there. These new tracks they've added to the service in the last little bit, the likes of Navarra and so on, and Sachsenring are just a bit of a different challenge for sure, and they're really beautiful scans, 3D curbs, so there's a lot of extra stuff out there to deal with for sure. And it's going to be one of those races, I think. You're going to have to make some good decisions. This place is pretty wide. There's going to be lots of opportunities to get beside another driver and try to put one up the inside or even the outside around a lot of these corners, and it can just kind of drag you backwards. So we shall see how it goes. I believe, I'm having a deja vu of mentioning that last time and thinking to myself, too wide's not going to work around here. It's going to be slow. And then half the race was too wide, and it didn't seem like any was really slowing anybody down a whole bunch. So we shall see how it goes here, but we're about to get it kicked off behind, I believe that's a BMW pace car. That might be a new pace car, if I'm not mistaken, Ron.
Yeah, I think they had that in a couple of seasons ago. I say a couple of seasons ago. I think it was one or two at the very most, but still a nice looking pace car, nice looking field on this nice looking racetrack. About to get up and rolling from round number 3 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors here at the Sachsenring as the green flag is out and the drivers are on their way. They're already scrapping for some of the spots a little bit farther behind. Guido Marzucchi getting off to a flyer of a start, and now right behind him, Parvin Ladar going to try and give a challenge to Felix Samoas as they head their way side by side off into turn number 1. Samoa is going to rip it on the high side. Ladar stuck on the inside line. We'll have to see how that battling's all going to shake out for the final 2 podium spots. Looking at side by side racing all throughout this field as they descend down the hill off into turn number 3. It's been a dream start from Marzucchi, a solid one for Samoas, and some drivers already making up some moves with some shuffling a little bit farther behind.
Yeah, pretty clean start there for sure. We had a little bit of 2, 3 wide, 4 wide maybe even for a moment, and then everybody really single filed out there for this section. And I think, again, that's going to be some knowledge from the last time we were here. It's not going to be fast to try to go 2 and 3 wide and make up a bunch of positions there. You're most likely just going to lose them and lose the pack of cars in front of you. So we are seeing a line to stern battle here all the way through the field so far. I don't believe we have lost anyone. Joshua Spears here bringing up the end of the field, and a really clean start so far. Everybody is single filed out, Ron, as we go down the hill for the first time.
Yes, they head their way down into turn number 12. You can already see that Felix Samoas thought about down the inside of Marzucchi, but thought better of it. We ride on board with the driver in the midst of this V Hornets nest. It's Jim Brewster in the 933 car series admin, your race winner last time out at Sebring, looking to keep that momentum rolling here, but he's got a challenge on the inside, and that's Russ Telker as they head their way off into turn number 13. Telker thought about the dive. He holds on to that Spec 2 lead still, but not going to hold on to P6 as with that slow run through the final turn onto the start finish straightaway. Gotta get chewed up and spat out by the likes of Kurt Nunes and Stefan Heemskerk and others. Meanwhile, we got a 5-pack of Formula V's heading our way down into turn number 1. Felix Samoas looking to take the race lead from Marzucchi. Sweeps around the outside. Now gonna hold on to the inside line off through turn number 2, but just can't keep that momentum rolling. Marzucchi still holding on to the race lead. Samoas in P2, Ladar, Colacio, and Brewster complete your top 5 for now. Emphasis on for now.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. That's for sure. You could really see Samoas making that outside line work into T1. Very impressive stuff there. I actually like that. That's one to bank for later. That can work through there for sure. You could make a pass, maybe throw a pick into the next corner there and make that one work through the outside. But I think Guido has some plans today. I think he's got some plans to stay out front. I think he wants to win this one. I think he definitely can win this one today. It's gonna take some thinking in the car though, for sure. There's gonna be some pressure from some drivers here. Everybody is, I would say, is cautiously kind of just taking their time at the moment here so far. As I say that and look behind, and there's 2 or 3 4 wide or 2 wide situations happening right as I said that. People are starting to look a little bit froggy here, but it looks like there's a lot of thinking going on out there. Maybe I'm wrong, but we got a lot of line of stern cars, a lot of speed happening right now too. I think our lap times are going to be up from the last race, but this is looking pretty good. I think we're going to have a good one here, Ron.
Yeah, it is certainly looking like that, as that was Ladar running a little bit wide off through turn number 13. He's got to lose that on a spot to Jim Brewster, and maybe even a second to Kurt Nunes. That battling in the Masters category going to be intense from the start all the way through to the end of this race. Do want to touch on some of the storylines that come out of qualifying. The Masters category, really impressive thus far here in Season 4. The Masters pole sitter has either been starting in 2nd or 4th thus far. Alan Degassis, your Masters pole sitter in the opening race at Phillip Island, started that race on the front row. Andrew Love and Jim Brewster, your Masters pole sitters of the past 2 weeks, started in P4 in both the race at Sebring 1 week ago and the Sachsenring here today. Those Masters competitors, they may have a slightly higher age than some of the people they're racing around, but with age comes wisdom, and they always like to prove that here in these races, where it's a game of chess in these Formula Vs without a question or shadow of a doubt. You have to think before you make a move.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to happen quite as quickly as it does in some other cars. You're going to be beside the other driver for a little bit. You definitely need to set up moves in these cars. Every once in a while, you can just kind of sweep by somebody on the brakes, or if you get a really good runner, they make a mistake or something. But for the most part, you do. Like you said, you're going to have to kind of think about it. You're going to have to make these moves work and make them stick. And if you don't, the penalty to pay is pretty hefty if you miss a pass, as we're seeing some more double wide here between Jim Brewster and Colacio scrapping it out. If they don't figure that out soon, they are going to lose this lead pack here, but I would imagine they're going to figure it out pretty soon. You got Kurt Nunez just hanging there in the background as well, waiting for something to happen. Our race sponsor today, Russell Telker, doing pretty good just behind Kurt Nunez as well, in pretty good position here to potentially get a podium today. If he can kind of keep his nose clean out there, as Colacio having a look up the inside of Jim Brewster. Going to be actually the outside once we get to the corner here. See if he can make that work, as Felix Samoes was trying. Also, Russell Telker is beside Kurt Nunez, and we're 2 wide, 3 deep here. That was a close one into T1 there for Guido, and Felix Samoes gonna be able to take the lead from Guido there. So unfortunately, that's the first we've seen him slip a little bit. Made that work, or that move work from Felix Samoes. We'll have to get a replay of exactly how he made that one work. And Jim Brewster gonna hold on to 3rd place from Colacio here so far.
Yeah, it was a 6-pack of Formula Vs heading their way down into turn number 1. Very close quarter stuff. And look at the train of cars that we've got up at the front of the field. That's absolute insanity as we take a look at a replay to see that side-by-side fighting between Felix Samoes and Guido Marzucchi. They had been duking it out for quite some time. Samoes went for lunge and move after lunge and move and wasn't able to make it stick until just then. He's now jumped into the race lead. Guido Marzucchi right behind. Look at Jim Brewster. It really started to dip his toes in the pool to see that temperature. He's gonna maybe go for a move as they head their way down the hill out of turn number 11 into 12. Will Brewster try and go for the race lead here, or is he just gonna be happy with P2? Down into the turn, they're gonna go side by side. Samoes gonna jump out to the big gap, but Brewster and Marzucchi still duke it out. They finally single file out as they head their way out of 12, with Brewster jumping his way up into P2. But look at the pack of cars that we've got up in the front of the field. It stretches from your race leader, Felix Samoes, all the way down to Ken Hadu in the 555 car in 12.
Yeah, that is quite the pack of V race cars here. And as you can see, they're starting to fan out and look for, okay, I'm supposed to be in front of you. I want to get in front of you now. People are getting a little bit froggy out there. Jim Brewster's made his way up into 3rd place here. This is where you want to start just really smoothing out and making sure that you're kind of holding that position for now, I think would be the best way to go. You're not trying to move forward unless it presents itself, and you definitely don't want to slip backwards unless you absolutely have to. Well, I just did hear somebody make some contact there. I think maybe we have somebody off. Yeah, we have somebody off in the background. Not exactly sure who that is, but we have our first taker for some grass here. We'll have to go back and have a look at that. But yeah, Jim Brewster holding on to position here pretty good so far. There's a gap starting to form, so if he gets a little bit too defensive here, this could work against him pretty quickly.
I believe it was Hado and Degassis as they have completely lost touch with the pack right up in front. And yeah, you can see 4.2, nearly 4.3 tenths of a second, the gap between those racers to the rest of the pack in front. As we take a look to see exactly what happened here with Degassis in the 927 car down into the turn. You got Ken Hadu a little bit farther behind. He spins after a move on Justice, and Hadu having to take off a trip into the gravel trap to avoid making contact. Unfortunate for Hadu, wrong place, wrong time, but it's that's kind of the deal with going for a move off into turn number 3 in these Formula Vs. There are such momentum-based cars. You know, this is a very odd comparison, and there's not a lot that draws these two cars together, but in terms of the way they are, it does kind of feel fitting. These cars, in a very odd way, it's like an 18-wheeler semi-truck. You can't, once you have that momentum, you can't really stop without some sort of incident taking place.
Yeah, it is true. It's honestly momentum based for sure. And once you get that momentum going, you really don't want to slow it down. It takes a little bit to get it back going again. So if you have a mistake or somebody kind of stifles you a bit or you make contact with someone, it just extrapolates out big time from everybody around you, and you can just see it. They just start freight training immediately basically around you. And you really can't do that. You have to keep your momentum up in these. You have to keep your flow up in these. It is the whole point. If you do anything a little bit too sporadic, or maybe you kind of surprise your competitor a little bit too much or something, and cause them to go 2 wide or 3 wide or go off the track, you're just going to lose a ton of time. But up at the front here, we're looking pretty good so far. We're able to keep the pace going here. We still have a very long line of cars, a little bit shorter than it was a few minutes ago, but it's definitely still a very long, almost like an 18-wheeler, you'd say. It's just like a big train of V's, basically. Parvinder Ladar having a little look up the inside there, not quite ready to do that one. I would imagine Guido Marzucci not super happy in third place right now. It's not where you want to finish it, at least, anyway, especially after leading or getting pole position here, as we're looking Jim Brewster going to have a look up the inside, and this is going to bring Guido back into the fight.
As long as Guido and Colacio can keep it clean, they were very close to making contact as they headed their way off through turn number 12. They keep it smooth, and now Colacio going to be involved in a battle with himself and Telker. But Telker, run as I say that. That's the thing with these Formula V races. You have to speak in very broad terms, because as soon as you say that two racers are going side by side, one of them's going to pull in front, the other's going to drop down like a stone thrown into a pond, and you're going to have something like that. It looks like a formation lap as they head their way down the start-finish straightaway. Samoes and Jim Brewster holding on to P1 and P2, but look at Nate Colacio trying to sweep around the outside. They are 3 wide as they head their way off through turn number 1. Colacio, Marzucchi, Nunez all battling for that final podium spot. You look at the racers a little bit farther behind. You look at the likes of Telker. He's still your Spec 2 leader and holds on to a very comfortable gap in that battle. A podium, an overall podium for a Spec 2 racer means a hell of a lot. So we may end up seeing Telker get a bit more aggressive in this battle as this race still develops, now officially a third of the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely saw a little bit of stiff arming there for sure from Telker and from Nunez as well around Guido. Guido got lucky there twice, actually. He almost caught the front wheels of I believe it was Russell Telker first, and then Kurt Nunez right after that, who were just not moving in response to Guido cutting down on the apex there. And that kind of thing is going to end somebody's race here if it doesn't start cleaning up pretty soon. You have to be a little bit more like water out there and a little bit less stiff like a board for sure, or you will end up in the kitty litter pretty quickly. As we see now, it looks like we're starting to kind of pack up here again. It's getting a little bit slow up at the front. They're fighting, squabbling a little bit too much. Samoa's trying to make a breakaway here from Brewster and Colacio now in third place, but this is where you got to start playing ball. I don't think this pack is going anywhere anytime soon, Ron, and it can get frustrating pretty quick, you know, when you start to figure out, or you start to think maybe I'm supposed to be in front of this person in front of me, or he's supposed to be behind me, or whatever it is. And if you can get in your head like that, things start to sometimes not happen so great, as we see Jim Brewster pulling out on the wings again here, going to see if he can't make a move into T1. And I have a feeling this is only going to bring the rest of that pack together. This is going to get frenetic fast as we see. Yep, there we go. Yep, and those are the kind of moves that are going to happen as we see Telker getting caught up there, unfortunately, and some more smoke just in front of that, too.
Yeah, I think Nate Colacio and Parvinder Ladar had their own little squabbles. They headed their way out of turn number 1. Telker, they're going to drop down all the way to the back of the pack. The only driver out of this race thus far is Nick Tullo with an incident that we haven't seen, but he's going to be joined by the likes of himself, Colacio, and I think there may have been Stefan Westcott, who's briefly out of the race, but he's back out there on the racetrack. May have been a brief internet blink out there, but Samoas, now your race leader, Jim Brewster, Guido Marzucchi, complete your podium and complete this top 3 pack, as everybody else has dropped back a little bit. We usually see it. We talk about the stages that these races usually develop into. It's not a NASCAR race. There's not enough gimmicks for it to be a NASCAR race. However, you do find these races settling into stages. Stage 1 usually ends when something goes on in a battle, in a pack, and that's exactly what happened there. Telker in the midst of a sandwich down into the turn. Nunez on the inside, Justice on the outside. Unfortunate there for Josh Justice, innocent bystander, and another incident. He was involved in that Alan DeGassis Kenahadu moment a little bit earlier on, and he gets a piece of that drama as well. Thankfully, he's gotten out of it with not too much damage, but still certainly not ideal at all. He's dropped down to P8, in fact, in the midst of all that drama. As we take a look at a moment that it was involving Ken Hadu, is that himself and Kurt Nunez? No, that's the Kurt Nunez. That's Alan DeGassis coming to blows yet again all through turn number 6. That was ugly.
Yeah, that did look a little bit ugly, didn't it? It looked like there was more than enough room here to not be making contact with each other, and it happened anyway. But you know, we'll reserve we won't make a determination on that one quite yet. We'll let the stewards deal with that one. But that looked a little bit fiddly to me. I'm not really sure. That may look, I wouldn't say retaliation necessarily, but it looked like they were kind of stiff arming each other through that corner there. It's not really going to work out for either one of you when you do that. But unfortunately, looks like Hado is going to be out of this one, and that's definitely going to take Alan DeGassis way down the field, as well as we're still looking 1, 2, 3 here. Felix Samoes, Jim Brewster, and Guido Marzucchi in third place. You know, excuse me, if I was Guido, I might actually be a little bit happy about this. You've got a very, very let's call him a racy driver here in front of him who's going to put the pressure on Felix Simoes. We know that Jim Brewster will try to pass him. He's going to get beside him. He's going to take some risk. So if I was Guido, I'd be kind of trying to push Jim into that right now. I would actually be kind of riding him a little bit and being like, hey, I'm going to pass you if you don't do something. And that might force these two in front of him into a bit of a fight. And then maybe he can monopolize on that fight. But obviously we have Felix Simoes out front here who's not going to be intimidated by just anyone. So should be a pretty interesting one and a pretty awesome top three drivers here. Jim Brewster in the middle of a sandwich for podium.
Yeah, pretty good collection of racers up at the front of the field. That's one thing that I will never tire of covering these weekend warriors. The level of talent around the racetrack. Fantastic in-sim drivers, great real-life racers as well, and real formidable competitors in these weekend warriors races. Side-by-side racing, 3 cars covered by just about nothing, and some more side-by-side racing right behind. That right there is Parvin Ladar and Stefan Heemskerk involved in a little battle. So the driver, the number 3, the 96, and also the 5 of Michelle Lynn getting involved in all of this as well. I won't mention Michelle too much, as that's Stefan Heemskerk spinning off through turn number 3. Turn 3 claiming yet another victim. Unfortunately, Heemskerk just the latest driver to fall victim to a very tough section of racetrack in these Formula Vs. One thing that a Formula V does not like to do is go through a very long medium speed turn while trying to scrub off speed. That's everything you have to do on the entry and all throughout turn number 3. Such a shame for Stefan Heemskerk. I mean, it was running too well in this race. Yeah, I gotta say, talk about the comeback tour that Stefan Heemskerk has been on. Even with that spin, he is actually holding on to the only spot throughout the entirety of this field that hasn't changed. He started this race in P8. Unfortunately, with that spin, he's now back down in P8, but really shows how far he had moved his way up through the field before that spin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and you're right there about the spin as well. It's just like one of the things you just can't ask a V to do. You just don't really have the power to get yourself out of a situation like that when you need to, and that one was just kind of going to happen there for sure, as we see Jim Brewster now taking the lead of the race here on lap 11. Yeah, just a little under half of the race left here to go, so it's a pretty good time to jump, I would say. Felix Simoes is going to take another look on the outside. This outside line, really, wow, that was a big 4-wheel power slide from Simoes there into that corner, and he's going to be able to stay line astern with Jim Brewster. That outside move into T1 is definitely one I'm going to steal for sure. As long as you can get that outside line, you can sort of overspeed into the exit of the corner, and then it gives you the inside for the next corner. So that's one to remember, I think.
Yeah, I feel like turn 1, it's a bizarre turn 1 here. I could best describe it as like a medium to low speed hairpin, and you think about the elevation changes you had your way down in there as well. It feels downhill and also completely flat at the same time. It is a bizarre part of a racetrack. It kind of feels like you're driving down a smoothed out low resolution flight of stairs in an old Grand Theft Auto video game. It is a very odd section of racetrack as you head your way off through turn number 1, but that sort of bizarre nature can lend itself to some racers going for some unconventional moves. And as we get into the end of this race with 18 minutes already on the board and less than 12 left to go, these racers will have to think about when and where they go for those moves to finally get those spots, whether it be this battle in the top 3, all these racers looking to get an overall win and just get a good spot on the overall podium, or whether it be the battle right behind between your 2 Spec 1 competitors who last season were contending for a Spec 2 championship. Parvin Ladar and Michelle Lynn have found each other out there on the racetrack, currently slotted in 4th and 5th. Nice to see those two battling with the brand new red ticker next to their name and their brand new class.
Yeah, it looks like they've found each other on track again here as we're going too wide up front, but no, Felix is going to be able to take that one fairly easily into T1. But yep, they found each other on track again. Doesn't seem to matter what stripe is beside their name. They'll be racing beside each other, so that's the way it is. I do think sometimes we promote our S2 drivers a little bit quickly around here and sort of rob the S2 class of its actual competitive and stuff like that. Every once in a while, it seems like somebody will do well and we automatically move them up to S1 the first season, and it sort of robs the S2 race, or at least, a group of people who could be racing with each other. But of course, I don't do the analytics. I'm not seeing the numbers, and I'm probably wrong about all that, and it makes way more sense than I think. But it does look like they have found each other on track regardless. And our first S2 driver of Brett Thompson there, down in 9th place on a bit of an island by himself here. There's not really anybody to race down there. Stephen Westcott got to go down to 12th place, and a few seconds behind there to catch him. And then we have David McLean and Joshua Spears in 14th place, but still line astern up here at the front.
Yeah, in terms of the discussion about drivers moving up into Spec 1 from Spec 2 after a season of dominance or just a season of success, you, of course, are speaking generally as we look at these racers battling up at the front. Felix Samoas holds on to that race lead presently. Jim Brewster slotted right behind in P2. Guido Marzuki runs at your top 3. These racers still have a 1.8-second gap between themselves and the likes of Michelle Lynn and Parvin Ladar, who are battling side by side right behind. So they find themselves in a rather nice comfort zone presently, and all just clocked in their personal best laps of the race last time by, and rather evenly matched when it came to the times too. Felix Samoas last time by a 139.8, Jim Brewster a 138.2, 139.8, I should say, and then Guido Marzuki setting in a 139.9. So all of the racers in this podium all covered by a little bit over a tenth of a second in terms of their last lap time. So they're all going tit for tat when it comes to the laps, extending themselves out to be in a nice cushion come time for the end of this race, and all trying to stake their claim on an overall race win today.
Really pretty split up here in the packs now. The beginning of the race here, we were just line astern like a gigantic V race train, or a race train. There we go. I just made a new thing up. Gigantic V race train, and now we're kind of spread up a few packs here and there. Nothing really super froggy going on track except for that lead pack in the front there, but we do have a few little battles going on here. One of them with Joshua Justice and Kurt Nunez, looking for, perhaps a little bit of redemption after that little incident they had earlier there. You don't want to be losing time like that. Does look like actually behind them here, Stefan Heemskerk is actually starting to catch up to them, so we could have a 3-horse battle here before too long. But back up at the front here, still looking at Felix Samoas leading. We got Jim Brewster and Guido Marzucci kind of squabbling back and forth here for 2nd and 3rd place. Doesn't look like they're going to get caught by Parvinder Ladar and Michelle Lynn anytime soon. That could change. Obviously, we've got about 9 minutes left, about 8 minutes left now. We're going into T1 here again, and it looks like they're kind of trying to play ball with each other, doesn't it, Ron? They're not really fighting super hard at the moment.
Yeah, really, as it stands right now, I think these racers are not necessarily taking it easy, but they are trying to whittle the laps away and not throwing the haymakers at each other that they probably were a little bit earlier on in this race. So as these battles up towards the front have stagnated, for lack of a better term, I want to touch on a battle going on a little bit farther behind between Wayne Baltimore and Stefan Westcott, the drivers of the 973 car and the 225 car, respectively, currently battling for P11. Wayne Baltimore, a stalwart here in the Weekend Warriors world. Nice to see him out here on the racetrack as per usual, and if anybody would like my job here at Slow Motion Broadcasting so you could send folding anvils to drivers, let me know, as Stefan Westcott has now popped back out onto the racetrack. Now I remember why Westcott was a little bit hard to follow in the early stages of this race, putting in a good performance presently in that McLaren-inspired race car, and hoping that he did end this race off into turn number 5 on lap 1, which he didn't, but now he has got himself involved in the battle for the first 2 spots outside of the top 10. Just want to touch on Spec 2 and your race leader in that class right now. It's Brett Thompson in the 888 car, essentially running all by his lonesome, as a 13.5-second gap to himself and Stefan Heemskerk a little bit farther up the road. And Alan DeGasse is about 2.3 seconds behind him. So Brett Thompson really feeling a bit lonely as it stands currently slotted in 9th, which, hey, if you're holding on to a class lead, I feel like it's better to feel lonely than it is to feel terrified in a battle.
Yeah, I would definitely rather feel a little bit lonely in the lead of my class than I would surrounded by other cars. Although, you know, it is fun to race too, right? You do want to get a race. You have to, you know, to really feel the glory, you have to beat someone. And the harder that is to do, you know, the more glory you feel at the end of the day, kind of thing. So being out there can be nice. It can be relaxing, but it's always nice to have a race on your hands as well. Like we have up at front here, we did have just a quick change between Guido and Jim Brewster there quickly, but they're back second and third here. I think if I was Guido, I'd probably be pretty happy where I was right now. I think I'd probably be waiting on that one. You might want to make that move into second place just before the last lap, and then try to get that drag race down the front straight, or sorry, the back straight for the finish line, maybe to get the win around here. I think would be the way to do it, but I don't race these Vs very often. I do watch them for a living here these days, and I've gotten fairly good at kind of predicting how things are going to work out. We're going to have a look up the inside here. Felix Samoa is not sure this is going to work out, or even that he's trying to make it work out quite yet. He's going to succumb to that one just to make sure that you don't lose too much time, and that's kind of how you want to do it around here, isn't it, Ron? You got to keep that momentum up we were talking about at the beginning. If you kind of try to fight that move too much, well, then you're going to have Parvinder Ladar and Michelle Lynn on your butt real quick as well. So you want to make sure you kind of just facilitate those passes from time to time.
Yeah, these Formula V races, definitely a game of give and take more often than not. And these racers that you see up at the front, very experienced in these cars, very experienced in this series. I mean, hey, Jim Brewster is the series admin, so that kind of goes without saying. But Felix Samoa, your reigning champion, knows how it rolls here in these FVs. And of course, Guido knows as well, a multi-season veteran here in the Formula V Weekend Warriors. All of these competitors know how to win a Formula V race, and they know that they don't really they don't really have anything to gain just throwing haymakers at each other. I can't even say throwing haymakers at each other, throwing bombs at each other, essentially. There's no point in doing that at this point of the race. They know that they got to play the patient game, allow Parvinder Ladar and Michelle Lynn to battle a little bit farther behind them, so it helps them extend the gap without really doing too much. And of course, when it comes to side-by-side racing, if somebody has an almighty run heading off through the other rather lengthy flat-out sections around this racetrack, I mean, hey, that start finish straightaway, bit on the long end here this season. So and once those runs come about, it takes a veteran in these Formula Vs to know fully well to say, hey, look, I'm just going to let you go by. I know that you've got a lot of speed. I know that you want to take the race lead. Have it. That's all you have to do. Just say, here we go. There's the spot. That's pretty much what you got to do to win in these Formula V races. It's not about going out there, going for the most audacious moves, going for the dives lap after lap and corner after corner, race in and race out. You got to play that give and take game quite a lot here in these Formula Vs, so we most certainly see that up at the front as they are now only about 3 minutes and change away from the checkered flag here in this 30-minute long race at the Sachsenring. Felix Samoa and Jim Brewster side by side as they head their way off into turn number 1. Samoa is going to hold on to that race lead. Marzuki running right behind, though. I think right now what Guido is doing is he's looking at those racers run right in front, and he's saying, okay, how can I make this work? Where can I go for that move? Where can I go for the dive? How exactly should I make this work? That's what Guido is scheming in his head at the present moment. He is a smart driver. He's a smart racer. He's a smart cookie. He knows how to win these races, and he knows that in the heat of battling, even the most venerated and experienced and smart racers in these Formula Vs can make mistakes. So I think right now what Guido is doing, slotted in third behind these racers for a decent chunk of this race, he's scheming. He's figuring out where exactly he can make this move stick.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I would be doing for sure. I would definitely be back here. You've had enough time now, enough laps now, around 17 laps basically, to watch these two drivers in front of you. Where their weak spot is, where they might make a jump too, is going to be a very important one. We know most likely Jim Brewster is going to make he's going to make a stab at it for sure, as anyone would here for sure. And if Guido has been playing his cards right, he'll be able to pounce on that opportunity, and it looks like that's exactly what he's going to try to do here, as he's starting to put a little bit of pressure on Jim Brewster as well. So, you know, that's another thing that you want to employ as well, is just a little bit of pressure. Sometimes you can just push somebody into a bit of a mistake, and that's all it's going to take, is one little wiggle, one little mistake, and he's going to draft him out the inside. Things are starting to get a little bit froggy now. We are close to the end of the race, lap or two left. Guido's making his move.
We've been expecting it for quite some time, and here it is. Marzuki gonna jump in front of Jim Brewster, but it's close quarter stuff as they head their way off through turn number 1 for the last time here in this race. Samoas holds on to the lead. Marzuki now in P2. Jim Brewster, though, I think maybe in the catbird seat with how quick these racers are. He may be able to get the most amount of draft, but right now, Brewster throwing caution to the wind, going side by side very briefly with Guido as they headed their way off through turn number 4, 5, now into turn number 6. Samoa's going to utilize that opportunity to extend that gap now to nearly 0.7 of a second up at the front of the field. Now we're into the fast section. It is pretty much flat out from the exit of turn 6 all the way through into the braking zone of turn number 12. Half the lap spent flat out here at the Sachsenring. It is blisteringly quick, but Samoa's gonna see that gap slowly but surely trickle down. It's slowly going down, but that's going to speed up exponentially every single feet as they continue to build speed. Now Jim Brewster going to pull out to the outside. He's going side by side with Marzuki. These two battling is going to give Samoa's just enough of a comfort zone to be able to walk away with this victory unless these two can settle out side by side into 12. Brewster holds on to the inside line. Marzuki going to run off all the way into the outside curb. Samoa's meanwhile going to hold on to a 6, nearly 0.7 of a second gap as he heads his way off through the final corner. And not for the first time here in the Formula V Weekend Warriors, Felix Samoa is going to win out in a battle of the Titans at the end of this race to score the victory here at the Sachsenring. It's close right behind with Jim Brewster getting P2 and the win in the Masters category for the second week in a row. Marzuki going to round out your podium in third. Michelle Lynn and Parvin Ladar get their battle sorted out right at the end, with Lynn making her way up into P4. Josh Justice, Stefan Heemsker, Kurt Nunez, Alan DeGassis, and Brett Thompson set to complete your top 10. Brett Thompson on track for his first ever win in the Spec 2 category, if my memory serves me correctly, so well done to him. Lost out on that spot overall to DeGassis right towards the end of this race, but he still walks away with a class win.
Yeah, that was a great showing out of Brett Thompson today for sure. He's on a bit of an island by himself, kept his nose clean the whole time, just clicked off laps, able to take that S2 win today. But great little fight up at the front there as well. Not quite enough in the bag there for Guido today or for Jim, but great fight right down to the line there. Jim's actually going to take that one just barely over Guido, and then a really close finish just behind them as well between Michelle Lynn and Parvinder Ladar. Michelle going to actually win out on that one, so some great driving there to get fourth place today. Yeah, pretty great race out there. I think we called it pretty good. It's, kept things pretty smooth, pretty technical track, and it looks like the drivers are kind of getting their hands around it now. It was a little bit fiddly the first time we came here. There was a lot more side-by-side driving, a lot more mistakes and accidents. This time it was a pretty copacetic race.
Yeah, pretty fun racing here at the Sachsenring for week number 2 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Just to touch on the storylines leaving that race, of course, Felix Samoas walking away with the victory. That is the first win for your reigning champion here in the FV Weekend Warriors. He came up so close 2 weeks ago at the Phillip Island. Wasn't here last time at Sebring, but is here today, and he walks away with the W. Brett Thompson going to keep a streak going of 3 different winners thus far in the Spec 2 category. Same could be said about Spec 1 for that matter. Jim Brewster, though, becoming the first multi-time race winner here from Season 4, and he gets it done 3 weeks into the season. So Jim looking to try and defend his championship, and also the second overall podium for a Masters winner thus far this season. Andrew Love finished the opening race at Phillip Island. Oh, wow!
Holy!
Oh!
My goodness,
I was too busy talking about
crash.
statistics. Michelle Lynn just went beyond.
That was probably the most violent V crash I've ever seen, as she is now some sort of physics anomaly here happening in the fence. Sparks flying. She's got some molten sparks coming out of the back of the car. Let's see if we can't jump on board here. Yeah, things not looking super good for the V of Michelle Lynn there, stuck in the fence. Let's see if we can't find out how she got there again.
I am slightly terrified to take a look at this. See, I was too busy looking at my stupid stat sheets that I didn't even, I neglected to mention the fact that Michelle Lynn just got sent into the nether.
Wowzers.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've seen a roll quite like that. That was violent.
And she's stuck in the fence as well. The car just oscillating back and just stuck. Not really sure.
Here.
I think iRacing and like the laws of physics are currently battling. I mean, we've seen some physics-defying moments in the Formula V's in the past, but Michelle Lynn
the washing
knocking
machine.
it out of the park. Yeah.
Wowzers.
The spin
that was
cycle there into one.
It really was, yeah. And then the sparks. I think that's something new I've been noticing on iRacing, actually. I really like that effect, the sparks kind of coming out of the engine and stuff. I saw last week at one, I believe it was one of the, I believe it was XSLR there. Somebody put it in the fence or something. It was just sparks flying out of the back of the car. Pretty cool stuff. It looks a little bit janky sometimes, but I like the addition of some more effects there. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we do have Jim Brewster in the interview area. Perhaps we will maybe wait an extra second here and pull the points up, see if we can get anybody else in there, results up, and then we'll do an interview or two. What do you say?
I think that sounds like a pretty alright plan. I'm gonna have to wash my eyeballs out to forget that moment with Michelle Lynn heading down into turn number 1. That is the first time that I've ever seen a Formula V car flip that many times. And I say this as somebody who somehow flipped the Mercedes F1 car at Summit Point 16 times. Your guess is as good as mine how I was able to do that. But here are your results at the end of this race. Felix Samoas walks away with his first win of the season. Jim Brewster going to come home right behind in P2, winning in the Masters category today. Guido Marzucchi, your pole sitter, will red at your overall podium in third. Michelle Lynn taking the gold medal in terms of the burn 'em up, crash 'em up wreck fest at the end, and walks away from this race with a P4 result. Nice drive from her. Parviner Ladar, your reigning Spec 2 champion, finishes in 5th with Josh Justice in P6, Stephanie Eamskirk in P7, Kurt Nunez in 8th, Alan DeGassis in 9th, Brett Thompson runs at your top 10 with Wayne Bartermore in P11, Stefan Westcott finishing this race in
Got
P12.
two people's names together there.
Yeah, I was mixing up him and your P13 finisher of David McLean in the 348 car, finishing right behind Westcott. Joshua Spears in 14th. Ken Hadu, one of the retirees from this race after some drama a little bit earlier on. He's 2 laps down at the end of this race. Nate Coliseo in P16, 11 laps down. Same can be said about Russ Telker, the sponsor of today's broadcast, class down in P17. Nick Tullo is your final driver, classified P18, 13 laps down at the end of this race. So that's how it all shakes out at the end of 30 minutes of racing action here from the Sachsenring for round number 3 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors. And it looks like we have got ourselves some drivers to have a chat with us. And I think I'll get the interviews kicked off and rolling by having a chat with your overall race winner for the first time this season as your reigning champion, Felix Samoas, now joining us here in the broadcast booth. Felix, first off, welcome back here. You were absent last week, recovering from an illness, but welcome back, and welcome back into Victory Lane. How was it out there here at the Sachsenring?
That was good fun. Between me, Guido, and Jim. Yeah, I mean, not much to say. The track is challenging. I was just chatting with Jim, and he was saying, and it's right, it's true that it's hard to hit all the apexes and keep a good line throughout, like lap after lap on this track. It's really tricky. Some corners are blind. You kind of have to know where the apex is going to be. So that's the challenge part of this track. Other than that, I think we played good. Everybody, I mean, at least at the front back, leaving enough room to have to the guys around me. And yeah, so I think it was good fun. And then finally, I got a win this season because I had a bit of bad luck.
Yeah, thankfully the falling anvils evaded you here at the Sachsenring, walking away with your first win this season. Entered this season, of course, as the reigning champion here in the Formula Vs, and now with one win in your back pocket. What's the thought process as we head our way off through the rest of the season?
I really don't have a strategy. I just go race by race, trying to do my best, and then in the end, I just hope Thor doesn't beat me too much. And I still have a chance to win the championship. I don't know. Let's see how it goes.
You know, totally fair. I think it's a good strategy just to say, you know what, I'm going to drive the race car as quickly as I can and let the points fall into my lap however they may. But speaking of the races that lie ahead, Felix, next time out, we're going to be running at Lime Rock Park. That race is usually just absolute pandemonium. So what are your thoughts heading to that racetrack in 1 week's time?
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Yeah, it's just one of those tracks which is very fast. Just is it like no chicanes, or it has any of the chicanes? I actually don't know which version we run.
That is a good question. I'm gonna look through. It's the Grand Prix layout. So at least that's how it's marked off in the Weekend Warriors calendar. So I think that may have the first chicane, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, it has the first chicanes. Okay, so there's a heartbreaking point there. Otherwise, there would be none. And one more corner to the left. Otherwise, there's just. Let's see how it goes. Normally it's fun. I like Lime Rock. Was like the first racetrack on iRacing 16 years ago, so I still have fond memories of this track, so I like it very much. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I adore Lime Rock as well, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that race on that new configuration here with the Formula Vs. But Felix will, as per usual, let you give the thanks and shout-outs before we let you go and celebrate this win today.
As usual, everybody taking place on the race, making this fun, and the community, everybody make a fun place to be in. The admins who keep the show going. I mean, I'm part of them now, so I also help with the reviews after the race. And you guys in the booth for the commentary as usual. And a huge shout out to Scott for sponsoring this race. Unfortunately, he didn't have much luck in the race, and he quitted in the early phase of the race. Yeah, that's it. Too much.
And well, hey, Felix, thank you so much for joining us here in the booth. Well done on the win, and looking forward to seeing you out there on the racetrack at Lime Rock next time out.
Thank you. Let's see.
With that, we certainly will. That right there was your race winner of Felix Samos. I like that at the end of it. We'll see. That we're going to be seeing something at Lime Rock next time out. But Josh, we have another man looking to have a chat with us, another driver who finished this race in the top two, that being your Masters winner of Jim Brewster, who's now joining us in the commentary booth right about now.
Jim, you pulled off another second place. Super clean drive today there. You're able to hold it off from Guido Marzucci. Tell us a little bit about this track here. We're talking about it a bit. It's technical in the front, not so technical in the back. How do you tackle this one?
Extremely technical, and Guido hates the track, and he owned us last night, and he owned us in qualifying. So I my job was to stay between him and Felix and manage him to not take off and stick me in third. Although winning the Masters, I knew that I had to accept third if that's what happened. But no, the first turn is super tough. That little squiggle down to that bottom valley, the car is just totally drifting. Super technical. I was just telling Felix, I'm proud that we hit those apexes for whatever 18 laps. I mean, that was really crazy. Then you go up over the crest of the hill, and then you're running over the guy in front of you the whole rest of the track. And so you just have to manage. And so every once in a while I would get such a big run, I would just go ahead and go past Felix. And Felix, to his credit, he had that turn one around the outside pass down, and that's a tricky pass. And then Guido did the same thing to me. That's a very challenging maneuver. If you were to judge that, it's like figure skating. That's a 4-star maneuver. But I think we had fun last night. I wish we had the 30 cars we had last week, but we had a good bunch here today. I hope it was a good show.
Yeah, it definitely was, and you're right, that outside pass through there, pretty impressive stuff, and I definitely got a little light bulb on that one for sure. It works through there around the outside if you can get it just right, sort of overspeed it, and it gives you the inside for the next corners. It's definitely one to remember for sure, but great driving out there today for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you could stuff it down, you're actually just really side by side there. And if you really wanted, you could stuff it down in that valley, but that valley is such an edgy spot anyway, and you have a whole rest of the lap to catch the guy again. So if as long as you lose just one place and don't lose two, then that's why we were side by side a couple times, and I could have forced it, but it was a really high risk place to force it. And as glamorous as this race driving stuff is, the truth of the matter is, whoever makes the fewest mistakes and controls their risks and their irresponsible gambles is who does well. I mean, it's not as glamorous, but that's the facts. You gotta sit there and manage in your head which one of these risks are good and which ones are too risky. And like I said, by letting him go in there, then I still was in draft the whole rest of the lap. So and it's not like you're going to get away. you're not going to get out of the front and escape. Although Guido escaped on us last night. He really did that. He got like a 2-second. But anyway, so for everybody, this is also runoffs weekend. So I hope you got the television dialed in to. I think we had Sachsenring brothers or a family out there racing. While we were racing, they were on track out at Road America for the SCCA runoffs. And we watched Morgan Burkhart get a 4th place this morning with the surf. So it's a fun weekend. We're racing cartoon cars, and the real cars are racing out at Road America for the national championships.
Awesome. Yeah, we did have a little bit of a play-by-play from Dan Sachsenring here in the chat as well.
Good.
You can check afterwards here. So yeah, make sure you're tuned into that as well. If you're not watching, or once we're done this, make sure you tune into that over there. But next week we'll be heading out to Lime Rock. We believe it's the GP layout with the 1 chicane. What do you think about that? How do you like that track?
And
good one?
No, I think it's the worst chicane in the world. Michelle picked it. I gave her the choice whether she wanted to stick with the classic or go with the GP. Yeah, to me, I call that chicane. That's the shopping mall entry. You're going down a straightaway and also you turn 90 degrees and you're turning up into the shopping mall. But it'll be an interesting challenge. The rest of the track, we're only using 1 chicane. We're not using the double bonus silly second chicane. So we'll still have some drafting at the end of the straight, but it won't be the same as we usually are. Anyway, and I haven't said hi to Tam yet. I had the best visit with Tam. She was here with me for 18 days, and we just had a great time. And I miss her for sure, and I can't wait till she comes and visits again. I really hope to get her in a booth with you guys again with Discord. It just happened to be she came. We weren't here at my rig on race day, so otherwise I would have got her in there to interview.
For sure,
to talk to you guys. Anyway, hey, thanks for everything, guys. Can't wait to go watch the show. And thanks for everything you did. I watched your slow motion highlights this week of all, and I see all those other races. I saw Jason Green racing Formula 3s. I was like, what? I knew he was doing Indy cars. I didn't know he was doing Formula 3s.
Yeah,
too.
I'm over there in the Formula 3s too, actually, when I'm not getting run over by other drivers. But what are you gonna do?
To me, I think that's what Formula 3 stands for: is getting run over by other drivers.
Yeah, pretty much. Locking wheels.
Formula 3 is
flipping. Yeah.
Well, and to have a car balanced on your head. If you don't have a car balanced on your head, then you're not really racing Formula 3.
You're not
F3. You see, there's an added part into the name Formula 3. It's actually F360 because you say and then you do a 360.
Very good. That sounds
learning.
Good.
Yeah,
anyway.
learning. Well, that was a great showing today, and good thinking in the car there. Great to get some insight from you as well about what you're thinking in the car and the V's there, and kind of exactly what we were saying here as well. You got to think, you got to facilitate those passes sometimes, and you did a great job of it today, and were able to come away with the 2nd place. So congrats, man.
Remember what I told you? You last year too. On these drafty tracks, you'll see me at the pointy end. If it's not so drafty, you won't see me at the pointy end. But you get a big puff of air and let me suck up behind somebody else, then I can play up on the sharp end here. Anyway, thanks for everything, guys.
Yep, no problem, Jim. Have a good one.
Bye.
I say that knowing fully well that I absolutely love the F3 car on iRacing, and you can catch that action from the SRG F3 series every single Wednesday. That would have been a perfect lead-in to talk about the upcoming shows that we have here on Slow Motion Broadcast. And really, the action does not stop here on SMB. Got a lot of stuff to look forward to over the next couple of weeks. Of course, tomorrow we've got the Weekend Warriors doubleheader, as is usually the case on Super Sundays here on SMB. The FF1600 is going to be running at Okayama, and it's going to be a Japanese doubleheader as well. The Spec Racer Fords making their appearance at Tsukuba. That's basically an oversized go-kart track, so that's going to be a very fun race to look forward to. And then we have got ourselves a very unique form of racing in the form of the Big Block Modifieds running at Eldora for round number 5 of XSLR. That'll be on Sunday at 8:10 p.m. You can see all the local listings there. Times listed as in Eastern Standard Time. American Muscle Series going to continue on their championship with round number 10 this upcoming Tuesday, and about 45 minutes after that show starts, you can see the SRG F3 action running at Winton on the Grand Prix layout this upcoming Tuesday. Wednesday, we've got a doubleheader for you with the XMS Ferrari Road and Oval Challenge running at Barber Motorsports Park this upcoming Wednesday, October the 8th, and then later on that night, we have got SRG F3 action running at the Bend on the Air National layout. So it looks slightly less so like an angry tapeworm compared to the GT configuration of the Bend. And of course, the Formula V is going to be running at Lime Rock. Gives you a very good reason to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss out on the racing action here on SMB. Josh, though, Lime Rock in 1 week's time, that is going to be a rather troublesome race for some, and one that definitely spikes up the blood pressure.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think we've all been there so many times that we have some good memories there and some bad memories there, and some a little more than the other depending on who you are. But I don't mind Lime Rock. I like driving around it. It is a little bit of a small track sometimes, and you can get a lot of laps in. It starts to get a little bit mind-bendy, but always race is really good. Always have a, as Jim was saying, I think it's probably the first time I ever touched iRacing and turned a lap around here. It was at Lime Rock, so it's always got a little place in my heart as well. But I think we're going to have a really good race there, and I would imagine we're going to have a pretty packed field there as well, it being a pretty popular track that everybody knows.
Yeah, it is going to be a really fun race at Lime Rock next time out here for the Formula V Weekend Warriors, and as is usually the case, you'll be able to catch the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Once again, want to give a thank you to Russell Telker, the sponsor of today's broadcast here on SMB, and we'll let you know that if you're still in the mood for some action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting between now and tomorrow's triple header, you can see it with the brand new September highlights reel that was posted just yesterday here on the Slow Motion Broadcasting YouTube channel. Just about every single bit of action that we have here on SMB all compiled into one video. That's a pretty good one, so happy to check that out after this broadcast is said and done. And speaking of which, with all the drivers interviewed, with all the results tallied up, and everybody having their fair share of fun here today, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, and Josh Wilkie working the comms and the cams with me on today's show, I say thank you all so very much for tuning into the action on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.